Oh! The cook! Bro, this build is cracked! I have learned from the Master Sith Lord, Rob, the concept of damage per screenshot, where you have the most damage per screenshot you can. But I wasn't even trying to clickbait this time. It was just that much damage on Lilith with my full tank, face tank build for pits. So it's pretty impressive. We are cooking. My build is still not upgraded. The clip you saw on Lilith, I still did not have the new amulet. Still have +8 on my rings and amulet, which is a big damage loss. And there's still more to optimize. Well, let's talk about first something that makes this build good. Let's start with that. Something that you guys don't care about, the Paragon board. But I like to talk about the Paragon board because I'm a nerd. So we're gonna spurg over the Paragon board a little bit before we get into stuff you guys actually care about. The first thing I want to show about this Paragon board is that I managed to add both Earth and Devastation, Thunderstruck, and Ancestral Guidance. I did that by not getting the 6th board for the glyph. Instead, the genius part is that we are getting 12% max life here. 12% max life as the last board is 12% damage reduction that works against the bosses. Instead of taking something like a werewolf glyph or human glyph or undaunted, which is a 10% damage reduction, this is better, and at the same time, it is damage reduction that works against bosses. Some type of damage reduction against bosses do not work. There are some bugs at play. This works for sure, and instead of getting the extra glyph for a 10%, we are getting a Nerf and Devastation, which I can pump up to 31% damage extra, which is a lot. Now, why is 31% and not 40%? I cannot get 40% unless I play with a two-handed weapon, which we're not gonna do. I'm taking damage to crowd control enemies here, and also I have to do some sacrifice and take damage to crowd control enemies here on the Constricting Tendrils board. A little bit of a weird variation of the Constricting Tendrils board, but also we can get quite decent nodes here, but additive damage this season, because of the tempering being so high, is extremely weak. So, not as good, but we get the crowd control damage, which works against staggered enemies, plus we get this. So, not having the extra glyph, actually, it's about a 30% damage increase for us, and I'm not really losing any damage reduction, because not having Undaunted or Human here, I'm getting the HP back from this node, which is 4%, 2%, and 2%. So it's 8% life instead of 10% damage reduction. That's 2% difference, and we get a 30% damage increase. Big development for the Paragon board. So we're gonna see, the other stuff doesn't really matter. That's the cool stuff about this Paragon board, is that specific thing. Yes, we do run Electrocution. And let's talk about the build. Now the stuff you care about, the gear. You guys always wanna look at gear like weirdos on... I'm not even gonna say what they ask on Twitch, but pretty much asking to look at gear all the time, you guys. So this is my weapon. Need reworking, it's okay. Chance to landslide projectile to cast twice should be 34%. I need a new weapon. Needs to be double. But let's talk about one interesting stat on this weapon. The primary chance to restore resources. As you can see, I enchanted it. It's actually best in slot. I do not run any type of resource generation other than my boots. And lucky hit chance to restore primary resources on ring and on weapon. Let's take a look. This really only works if you follow the build. I'm not running the Spirit Boon Energized like a lot of people have to, and I have plenty of resources on single target without any problem. That's if you run the complete build with the aspect I have and you don't try to change the build. So you can see this works perfectly fine. And of course you can also throw in some Petrify once in a while, and boom, your HP will be full We reset Petrify, actually silly how quickly Petrify resets even on single target. So that's really good. Always super hyped to have a Petrify on low cooldown. There we go, another one. I advise you guys to take out the damage numbers, by the way, on the screen. They're not worth playing with this build. As you can see, I fixed all the resource generation of this build, and I'm able to not run a Helm with Spirit, and I'm not needing to run a chest with Spirit per second. I do not have to run T-Bolt, just because the lucky hit chance to restore resources, which is only good in this build, no other build. Because in this build, we have a lot of techs that work with lucky hit chance. We really abused lucky hit chance in this build in a massive way that other builds cannot leverage. The way to do that is, yes, we talked about it, I spent 1.75 billion on this item. Actually, honestly, it's kind of useless. A 20% Lightning Storm gloves would be almost as good, but it's cool. But it's definitely not worth 2 billion. I would suggest that a better way to spend the gold would be to get an Envenom Amulet, which I do not have. But, man, it's a one-of-a-kind item. It's really cool. Anyway, also I need to get Lightning Storm ranks, not crit chance. Failed the upgrades. It is what it is. But the important part is the lucky hit chance and the extra Lightning Storms that you get from this item. So whenever you crit, you cause an extra Lightning Storm. That's double the Lightning Storm's procs. On top of that, we have Aftershock, which casts a second set of Landslide. See, another set with Poison Creeper and with Landslide. On top of that, like we said, we have Subterranean for more Landslide procs, more pillars, because the more times you hit a target, the more lucky hit chance you have. It doesn't matter that Landslide does not have the highest damage. We only put 1 point in Landslide, because Landslide is here to farm pillars and lucky hit procs of various types that we have in this build. So it's really a lucky hit chance proc in this build. So we have a ton of extra pillars from Raging Landslide, from Aftershock, a lot of extra procs of Lightning Storm from Nature's Fury. We have the Bad Omens that has lucky hit chance, very important, you'll see in a second, and the Electric Shock dealing lightning damage has a chance to immobilize enemies. This is important as you saw in the clip, I can show it again on Lilith. See how fast I stagger things. The way stagger works is complicated, and maybe I will cover it in a separate guide on all the mechanics. But I have min-maxed the build for stagger. We have on the pants and on the boots lucky hit chance to stun or freeze or immobilize. And we have also on my amulet, instead of move speed, I've added one more stat. This is a new amulet that it was not in the Lilith clip, so this is now better than before. I've tinkered with other ways to increase stagger, ended up deciding on this to be the most efficient. I know there will be questions about why I'm not running Primal Lightning Storm, Raging Lightning Storm, because Primal Lightning Storm is giving me a chance to mobilize, right? And also on Tornado, I was gonna run slow actually, but I ended up deciding not to run slow because I discovered that this is actually a different type of CC that doesn't work on stagger. I've tried to cast Tornado and it doesn't add stagger bar on Lilith when I tried it, so I decided to remove it, and I found no differences in my stagger speed. So the build is fairly optimized for the stagger gameplay, and I'm very happy about it. I'm very happy with the lucky hit chance also to restore the ultimate, which when you're doing AoE on mobs, it's pretty much perma uptime on mob, almost perma uptime on bosses as well. A very powerful combo to run. Being able to only run 1 point here on the snake and only 1 point in wolves allows us to take full advantage of running Iron Feather for the 14% maximum life. Or if you're speed farming, attack speed is a good choice. Attack speed in this build is very important, and I think is more important than crit chance. We do get quite a bit of crit chance extra from here and from the totem, and we do not get attack speed here. So it's very important that you have attack speed on your glove, on your ring, on your Earthbreaker, and on your amulet. I will say attack speed GA is fairly important. I will go for like a GA attack speed, normal roll crit chance, and then roll for one of the many passives that are okay. I got Defiance. There is other passives that are more damage. For example, Natural Disaster is almost as good as Envenom. And of course, Envenom being the best one that you can get. Those are fairly good, but also Defiance, of course, can be done. Natural Balance, Resonance is worthless pretty much. It is a 6% or 2% per point. This effect does not proc. Now let's go over a little bit the required gear for the build. This build was made primarily because people wanted to use Ubers on Druid, and so this will be the full Uber version, but I will also make a video with a budget version with no Ubers, and only the Aesthetic Wraps and the Earthbreaker Ring, and only +4 items, so no GA. For the poor people, I think it will be a cool video. I'm running Harlequin Crest. I think the best stuff to get here is Max Life. I don't think cooldown is good. I was going cooldown for Debilitating Roar, but I've decided to not play with Debilitating Roar in the end, as my defense has shown to be incredibly powerful thanks to something we're gonna talk about in 2 seconds. Before that, Tyrael's Might, maximum resistance says at least get double proc before you go for the 12. That's an insane item. And if you do not have this, a chest with Spirit Generation, Max Life, is probably a good choice, and maybe ranks to Cyclone Armor. You can run Exploiter on the Aspect slot, and that's fine. The reason why I'm saying to run Spirit per second is because probably if you do not have Ubers, you're probably not going to have good gear, and maybe having extra Spirit regen would be useful for you. Aesthetic Wraps, critical strike chance, or ranks to Lightning Storm being the better, greater affix. If not, prioritize Lightning Storm doing 20% increased damage, and Lightning Storm ranks to the item if it's not GA'd. We have the Pants with a useless modifier, but it's +12, so I'm using it. Also, you do not need to get a GA on armor, or to get, because you can get total armor instead of debilitating or cooldown here. Also, one of the gems is gonna be Skull if you have Tyrael's Might. So you're actually not gonna be needing all this armor. A little bit of a wasted item, but the core of the defense of the build is the aspect of Undying. The amount of healing I get from Undying and the ability to be permanently immune to CCs from Metamorphosis renders this build virtually unkillable in T100 pits, which is the highest damage. It does not scale from above that. I can also face tank bosses with my almost 80k HP pre-pot. This is pre-potion. With potion, we are at almost 100,000 HP, which is a fairly good number. Then we're gonna have Landslide, Aftershock Weapon, we talked about it. I suggest to get a resource cost reduction totem, even though I'm not even sure that I need it myself anymore. My resource generation is really good. I'm not sure how much less resource generation I could have before I start to have resource issues. But if you have resource issues, run a chest or a helm with spirit generation, and just make sure that that is GA'd and, masterwork it once. For sure, getting one more spirit per second item would definitely remove any sort of resource cost issues. Again, lucky hit chance to restore resources on your ring. With close damage rolls as much as you can. The priority, of course, is Landslide. And then damage to close is the second priority. This item needs to be reworked, but that's okay. The Earthbreaker also need to remaster work it to get the double attack speed. Attack speed is the most important thing here. getting a GA Earthbreaker with attack speed is pretty good, if you can. But the most important thing is the summoning landslide should try to be as close as possible to 30%. Currently missing 4%, it's a big chunk of damage I'm losing. It's about almost 20%, but it's sustainable at the moment. Might try to change this ring in the future. The Shepherd Amulet, of course, on the ring, accelerating or retaliation. I'm testing them, seeing which one I feel the best. I need to study a little bit attack speed breakpoint of landslide. In my next video, I will know the attack speed breakpoint of landslide, and I will be able to figure out whether I need accelerating or not for the attack speed breakpoint, and that's gonna be interesting. For the amulet, we have Shepherd, and we have a lucky hit chance on the amulet, defiance, crit strike chance, attack speed. Attack speed and damage to close being the more important roles, in my opinion. The crit chance is fairly high at 74% plus 6 from the talents. So it's 80% crit chance. Okay. For the talents, I do not have points above Lightning Storm. You might ask why. Well, the Raging Lightning Storm actually was bug fixed, and you gain an additional Lightning Storm at the end. But how does the ring work? How does the Earthbreaker... Well, how does Nature's Fury work? Let's take a look at full screen here, gameplay. And let's activate a land Lightning Storm. So I cast a Lightning Storm. As you can see, it's a combo. We talked about it. It's a set amount of lightnings. And it goes like this. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 5. If you add one Lightning Storm, on the last proc of Lightning Storms, you will add one lightning. So, do the math. Adding one lightning to 5, 10, 15 lightnings is not enough of a damage increase, in my opinion, for 2 points. I don't think it is. 2 points is a lot. I would rather have other passive. This gives me, this one is 4% per point. This one is 5% per point. Points here are 2% per point. So 2 points is 4% extra damage. So if it's 1 in 15, adding an extra lightning on top of how many it is? It's 5, 5, 10, 14, 17, 20. So going from 20 to 21 lightnings. It's a 5% damage increase, I believe. Which is better than Resonance, to be fair. But you don't know if the lightning hits. Resonance will hit, for sure. So I think Resonance is the better choice. Because every lightning you hit will have the 4% extra increased damage. Fuck it, I don't know actually. I just convinced myself. It's kind of close. This is useless points though. Well, that, oh, you can also run 2 points on Cyclone Armor, 2% damage reduction. But no, it's definitely either points in Resonance or the actual lightning. Anyway, let's keep going. On Tornado, we do not run anything. I do not believe that the vulnerable chance is high enough. Doesn't do anything. It's only important to have it vulnerable up on boss. And on boss, we're gonna take it by other means. We run Raging Landslide, because Landslide itself does not do a lot of damage, but we want the extra pillars. Because if you watch the previous video where I explain how the Earthbreaker ring works, you'll know that the extra pillars is really what matters for Nature's Fury, because it bugs out with the ring. I run Fortitude, but not Vigilance, because I do not run Cyclonic Armor spam. I don't proc it, I keep it like it is. If you play it, you're gonna push enemies away, not really liking it that much. And I do not run other defensive skills in this version. If you do not run Ubers, running Symbiotic could be a decent choice, honestly. I would probably have that version on, where I would run Vigilance and Symbiotic, and maybe also run a different aspect. Instead of running this, I would run Natural Balance, which would give me 12% crit chance and 45% earth damage, which I think would make the build more or less do similar damage to whether you have a Shaco or not a Shaco. So I think that could be a good choice to people that do not have an Uber. And I will have the non-Uber version on the website ready for you guys. I do not run points here because I have my Shaco Bastensot. If you do not have Shaco, take the points off here and take the points off here. And you're gonna have to put 1 point in Poison Creeper. You do not want the crit chance from Brutal Poison Creeper because it does not work against the bosses. If you read it carefully, and I know I'm gonna get this question on stream 20 million times, only strangled enemies will have 30% crit chance. No bosses, and mobs become immune to CC after 5 seconds. And then for 8 seconds, it does not work. So calculated how much damage you will get from this, what percentage of damage, and the TLDR is it's mathematically not worth it. We have Electric Shock, we have Bad Omen, we have 1 point Endless Tempest, 1 point in Elemental Exposure. To be fair, you can do this and it will actually be slightly better. I wasn't running Electric Shock in the beginning. Yeah, Endless Tempest honestly kind of useless. Charge Atmospheres, 1 lightning, it doesn't do any damage, but it's 1 more proc, whatever. We have Crushing Earth, 15% damage. It's really strong. 1 point in Safeguard, this is all you need to fortify yourself. And we have Stone Guard, you do more damage if you are fortified. Very powerful. And Venom, we have Resonance, Natural Disaster, Circle of Life, Defiance, and we have full points in Petrify with Nature's Fury. I've thought about using Cataclysm, but I think starting with Petrify guaranteed is the superior choice, honestly. The Paragon, we already talked about it. The boons, we already talked about it. You saw my build. I would say the build is pretty good. And I'm gonna be upgrading my gear and then pushing a little bit. I think I can double the damage of the build. I don't know which build is gonna clear higher, if this or Wind Shear. But it's a really fun build and it looks really cool. And it's really good at doing Lilith. So I've really enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And I will see you guys in game or on stream. Have a good day.